The late afternoon sun, usually a benevolent painter of gold across the Hogwarts grounds, now cast an eerie, blood-orange hue. Leo Finch, perched on a window seat in the third-floor library, didn't notice. His nose was buried in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, a well-worn copy that smelled faintly of old parchment and the library's unique blend of lemon polish and forgotten spells. He loved the quiet hum of the library, the comforting weight of knowledge surrounding him, a stark contrast to the often intimidating magic of spells and flying lessons. Muggle-born, he often felt a step behind, his broomstick a perpetual enemy, his wand a temperamental acquaintance. A tremor, subtle at first, rippled through the ancient stone walls. Leo frowned, thinking it was just a particularly clumsy house elf or perhaps Neville Longbottom tripping again. He glanced out the window, expecting to see the usual hustle of students heading to dinner or the stately procession of centaurs on the Forbidden Forest's fringe. What he saw instead made his blood run cold. The Whomping Willow, a familiar, albeit fearsome, fixture on the grounds, was convulsing. Not its usual violent thrashing at some unsuspecting bird or an errant Quidditch ball, but a frenzied, almost organic contortion. Its thick, gnarled branches, usually a dull brown, began to pulse with a sickly green light. It was as if the very lifeblood of the ancient tree was boiling to the surface. Tendrils, impossibly vibrant and impossibly fast, shot out from its trunk, not just branches, but new, coiling appendages. They lashed out, not just at the air, but at the very ground itself, tearing divots from the manicured lawns. A collective gasp, then a cacophony of screams, ripped through the air. Leo scrambled to his feet, pressing his face against the windowpane, his book forgotten, thudding to the floor. The tremor intensified, rattling the shelves around him. The Whomping Willow was no longer merely a dangerous plant. It was an angry, writhing behemoth, growing, morphing, living with a terrifying new intent. Its roots, thick as dragon hide, burst from the soil, snaking across the lawn like enormous serpents. They split the very earth, creating gaping fissures that swallowed patches of the vibrant green grass. From these fissures, new flora erupted, impossibly tall, thorny vines that spiraled upwards with sickening speed, blossoming with exotic, carnivorous-looking flowers in hues of iridescent purple and toxic green. A fourth year, bless her adventurous heart, had been attempting to cross the willow's perimeter, likely for a dare. She froze, a small, pale figure against the backdrop of emerald madness. Before she could scream, a newly sprouted vine, thick as a python, shot out, wrapped around her ankle, and hoisted her upside down. Her terrified cry was cut short as other thorny tendrils lashed around her, squeezing, tightening. Leo watched, horrified, as a crimson stain spread across her robes before she was dragged, twitching, into the dense, rapidly growing tangle that was once the Whomping Willow. The air grew thick with a cloying, sweet scent, like overripe fruit mixed with something metallic and vaguely poisonous. It clung to the back of Leo's throat, making him gag. Panic, cold and sharp, clawed at his chest. This wasn't some magical prank gone wrong, nor was it a rogue creature. This was nature, but twisted, weaponized. Professor Sprout, bless her brave, dirt-caked soul, burst from the greenhouse's wand raised, a determined frown on her face. Foliage. Recede. Herbivicus reducto, she bellowed, unleashing a volley of spells. But her usually potent charms merely flickered against the onslaught. The vines shrugged them off, their emerald scales seeming to gleam with a wicked intelligence. A particularly thick, thorny creeper lashed out, shattering the glass of the greenhouses, sending shards raining down like deadly ice. Other professors joined the fray, their wands ablaze with defensive spells. Flitwick darted through the air, conjuring shields. McGonagall, grim-faced, transmuted chunks of collapsing stone into temporary barriers. But the plants were too many, too fast, too relentless. They scaled the castle walls with astonishing speed, tendrils probing every crack, every window. The ancient wards of Hogwarts, usually an invisible, impenetrable barrier, shimmered erratically, struggling against the sheer, physical force of the botanical assault. They pulsed red, then green, then a sickly yellow, like a dying heart. Students, retreat inside. Secure all openings. Professor McGonagall's voice, amplified by sonorous, boomed across the grounds, laced with an urgency Leo had never heard. But the plants were already inside. Through the grand oak doors, which were meant to repel giants, not petunias, snaked thick, woody vines. They tore through the polished wood, sprouting razor-sharp thorns and iridescent flowers that pulsed with an ominous glow. Students, scrambling to get in, were caught in the botanical net. A Ravenclaw prefect, trying to hold the doors, screamed as a vine wrapped around his arm, twisting, drawing blood. Leo was still at the window, frozen, witnessing a horror movie unfold in real time. His Muggle-born mind struggled to reconcile the gentle nature his parents had taught him to appreciate with this ravenous, destructive force. This was not the soothing calm of a forest path. This was the jungle's brutal, untamed heart unleashed. A sudden shriek from the corridor outside the library jolted him. He spun around, his heart hammering against his ribs. A thin creeper, barely visible against the stone, had slipped under the library door, its tip already unfurling into a blossom that looked suspiciously like a Venus flytrap, only larger and pulsing with a malevolent light. No, 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 Leo whispered, scrambling backwards, tripping over a forgotten stool. He fumbled for his wand, the holly and phoenix feather feeling strangely alien in his trembling hand. Lumos, he croaked, the tip glowing feebly, barely illuminating his own fear-stricken face. What was he supposed to do? Wingardium Leviosa a vine? Alohomora a thorny blossom? He glanced around the library. It was mostly empty, students having already fled or been trapped elsewhere. The librarian, Madame Pants, was nowhere to be seen. Had she evacuated? Or worse, the creeper under the door grew bolder, pushing the heavy oak inward. A sickening crunch echoed as the ancient wood groaned under the pressure. More vines, thicker ones, were joining it, tearing at the frame. Leo knew he had to move. Survival instinct, raw and visceral, screamed at him. He scanned the room, eyes darting from bookshelf to window. The window was closer, but it overlooked the main courtyard, now a swirling vortex of green terror. He couldn't go that way. His gaze landed on a narrow, rarely used side door, leading to a forgotten spiral staircase that usually offered a shortcut to the lower floors for diligent researchers. It was dusty, cobweb-laden, but it might be his only chance. He took a deep breath, clutching his wand like a lifeline, though he knew deep down his magical repertoire was pitiful against this. "Run, Leo, run," he muttered to himself, his voice barely a squeak. He bolted, weaving through towering bookshelves, his feet barely touching the ground. The sickly sweet scent of the invasive flora was growing stronger even inside the castle, a testament to its rapid infiltration. He could hear the snapping of wood and the tearing of stone as the library entrance was breached. Reaching the side door, he fumbled with the cold iron handle. It was stiff, resistant. "Open. Alohomora," he stammered, his magic crackling weakly, a pathetic spark compared to the roaring inferno outside. The door shuddered, then slowly, agonizingly, creaked open. He squeezed through, slamming it shut behind him, though he doubted it would hold for long. The spiral staircase was dark, choked with dust. He descended blindly, his hands scraping against the rough stone, each step echoing his pounding heart. He heard distant screams, the thud of falling masonry, and the chilling, whispering rustle of 1,000 growing things. He didn't stop until he reached the ground floor, emerging into a deserted corridor near the kitchens. The air here was cooler, less thick with the noxious perfume of the plants, but he could see the signs. Fine, almost invisible tendrils were already pushing through the mortar between the stones, tiny emerald veins spreading across the ancient walls. He had to get somewhere safe, somewhere enclosed. He darted down another corridor, past suits of empty armor, their visors reflecting the intermittent, frantic flashes of light from outside, spells clashing with thorns. Then he saw it. A familiar classroom door, slightly ajar. Professor Thorne's potions classroom. It was one of the few places in the castle with genuinely thick, reinforced walls, built to contain explosive experiments. He pushed the door open, slipping inside, then quickly turning to wedge a heavy, overturned cauldron against it. The classroom was eerily quiet, the flickering light of a few emergency Lumos charms cast by someone else bathing the room in an unsteady glow. The air smelled of various brewing ingredients and a faint, acrid tang that suggested some protective spell had been recently cast. He sagged against the door, gasping for breath, his knees weak. He was in. He was safe. For now. He peered through a grime-streaked window, one not yet consumed by vines. The sight outside was apocalyptic. Hogwarts, his home, was being devoured. The Whomping Willow, once a tree, was now the grotesque, beating heart of a sentient, sprawling jungle, its branches reaching for the sky, crowned with monstrous blossoms. The castle wards were visibly failing, sparking and dying around the main towers, leaving gaping holes for the emerald tide to surge through. Vines thick as an anaconda had wrapped themselves around the astronomy tower, choking its stone, prying apart its foundations. The entire landscape, moments ago familiar, was utterly alien, a verdant nightmare unfurling under the dying sun. And as he watched, helpless, a particularly robust vine with thorns like daggers snaked its way up the wall outside the classroom, its tip probing, searching for weakness. It was coming for them. He wasn't safe. Not really. Nowhere was. The air within Hogwarts was no longer thick with the familiar scent of old parchment and simmering potions. Now it reeked of damp earth, bruised leaves, and a cloying, sickly sweet perfume that made Leo's stomach clench. Every creak of the ancient stone, every rustle, sent a jolt of ice through his veins. He pressed himself against a wall, wand clutched so tightly his knuckles were white, its tip trembling. The grand corridor, usually bustling with students, was a ghostly tapestry of green. Thicker than any common ivy, virulent vines snaked across the stone, prying apart cracks, their tendrils feeling their way across the ceiling like blind, searching fingers. Some had already burst through tapestries, their thorns glistening ominously. A suit of armor lay slumped, not from a mischievous spell, but from being slowly crushed by a burgeoning moss that had swallowed its iron shell whole. Here and there, strange, luminous fungi pulsed with a faint, eerie light, casting grotesque shadows that danced in Leo's periphery. He could hear it now, too, a low, persistent groaning that vibrated through the very foundations of the castle. It sounded like the Whomping Willow, amplified 100-fold, its suffering radiating outwards, a living drumbeat of the apocalypse. Each throb was accompanied by a subtle tremor that dislodged flakes of stone and dust from the ceiling, mingling with an endless rain of green spores that glittered in the dim light. This isn't happening. This isn't real, Leo chanted internally, his breath coming in ragged gasps. But the vivid, terrifying reality of it clawed at his sanity. He'd seen the Whomping Willow, its bark twisted into a grotesque, anguished face, its branches lashing out with a violence born of something far more sinister than mere nature. He'd seen the Great Hall, or what was left of it, consumed by a rapidly growing jungle, students screaming as they were dragged under. He couldn't afford to freeze. He had to find Ellie. He had to find someone. He remembered Ellie's last shouted instruction, cutting through the chaos like a whip crack. Potions classroom. Professor Thorne. The potions classroom was on the lower ground floor, deep within the dungeons. It was usually cold and damp, a place of bubbling cauldrons and acrid smells. Now, Leo hoped its sturdy stone walls offered some measure of protection, or at least a temporary refuge. He moved cautiously, hugging the walls, his eyes scanning every shadow, every cluster of new growth. He had never noticed how many cracks there were in Hogwarts' ancient stone until now, each one a potential doorway for the encroaching flora. A sudden, sharp rustle from an alcove made him jump, wand snapping up. A small, furry creature, its eyes wide with terror, scurried past him, disappearing into the gloom. A Kneasel, perhaps, or a half-Kneasel like Crookshanks. Even the magical creatures were fleeing. He finally reached the dungeon entrance. The air grew heavier, the smell of damp earth more intense, but thankfully, less of that cloying sweetness. The ancient, heavy oak door to Professor Thorne's classroom was ajar, a sliver of candlelight escaping into the oppressive darkness of the corridor. Hope, fragile and desperate, flared in Leo's chest. He pushed the door open just enough to peer inside. The classroom was a chaotic but organized mess. Cauldron stands were overturned, shelves of ingredients had spilled, but in the center, a large, heavy oak table had been cleared. Professor Thorne, her usually severe features etched with grim concern, was meticulously wiping down the surface with a sterile cloth. Eleanor Vance, Ellie, her Gryffindor robes smudged and torn, sat on a bench, a deep gash on her arm. She was applying a poultice from a small medical kit, her face pale but determined. Several students, mostly younger ones, huddled nervously in a corner, their faces streaked with tears and fear. Relief flooded Leo, so potent it almost buckled his knees. "Professor Thorne." "Ellie," he gasped, pushing the door open fully. Both adults looked up, wands already in hand. Ellie's eyes widened with surprise, then relief. "Leo, you're alive," we thought. "Merlin, come in, quickly." Professor Thorne, a stern witch with sharp, intelligent eyes that missed nothing, simply nodded. "Mr. Finch. Good. You made it. Close the door tightly. And try to reinforce it with a charm if you can." Leo stumbled inside, his relief mixing with renewed urgency. He pressed his back against the heavy door, then fumbled for his wand. "Colloportus," he whispered, the locking charm clicking into place. He added a weak Repello Muggletum for good measure, knowing it probably wouldn't do much good against this, but it was a familiar comfort. The magical integrity of the castle felt thinner here, like stretched silk about to tear. He could feel it in the air, a subtle wrongness that made his teeth ache. "What's happening?" Leo asked, his voice raw. He looked around at the terrified faces of the younger students, a pit forming in his stomach. One first year was clutching a wilting daffodil that seemed to shiver. Professor Thorne didn't immediately answer. Instead, she finished her work, then carefully picked up a small vial filled with a dark, shimmering liquid. She looked at Ellie. "How's the arm, Miss Vance?" Ellie gritted her teeth. "Better, Professor. Whatever bit me, it's still stinging, but the healing poultice is working." It felt like it was trying to root itself into my skin. Professor Thorne nodded gravely. "A defense mechanism. Clever. And disturbing. Mr. Finch, come sit. You look as though you've run a marathon." Leo sank onto a bench, grateful for the support. He watched the professor, her calm demeanor a small island of sanity in a sea of chaos. Is it the Whomping Willow?" he asked, trying to grasp the impossible. "Only partly," Professor Thorne said, her voice low and precise, cutting through the panicked whispers of the younger children. "The Whomping Willow is merely the conduit. The mind behind this, the gardener as I've come to think of her, she is something else entirely. A force of nature, perhaps. Or rather, a force that has subsumed nature." She tapped the vial on the table. "I've been studying the samples Miss Vance managed to bring in, and what little I could gather from the castle's rapidly failing wards. This isn't simply accelerated plant growth, Mr. Finch. It's sentient. And venomous. Highly so." Ellie shivered. "I saw a mandrake. It wasn't screaming. It was laughing. And its roots were moving like tentacles, reaching for students." Leo felt a fresh wave of nausea. A laughing mandrake. The thought was horrifying. "Precisely," Professor Thorne confirmed, her gaze distant, as if seeing beyond the classroom walls. "This entity, I believe she is human, but with an almost supernatural affinity for flora, has subjugated the plants. Not just magically grown ones, but the very mundane, natural plants of this world. And she is using the raw magical energy of the Whomping Willow, one of the most ancient and magically potent trees on the grounds, as her central nervous system, her brain, if you will, to spread her influence. But magic should stop it." Leo protested, echoing the desperate hope of every wizard. "Hogwarts wards. Anti-Muggle charms. Everything." Professor Thorne sighed, a sound of deep weariness. "And so it should, Mr. Finch. And so it did, for a time. But our magic, our spells, they're designed to manipulate or counteract known magical forces. This is life. Manipulated life. Her control over plants is absolute. She is using the very vitality of the flora to overwhelm our protective enchantments. Think of it, Our wards are a shield against a magical assault. But she's not casting spells at the shield. She's growing through it, twisting it from within, using plants as her living, breathing projectiles. She picked up a wilting sprig of what looked like deadly nightshade, but its berries pulsed with an unnatural, sickly purple. This is not merely a plant. It is a drone, a living weapon. Each tendril, each leaf, each spore, it has purpose. It has direction. And it has venom. Potent, fast-acting neurotoxins and hallucinogens designed to incapacitate, to disorient, to overwhelm. Leo stared at the sprig, his Muggle-born background screaming at him. He remembered his parents, gardening, talking about the cycles of nature. This wasn't nature. This was a nightmare. So, conventional magic won't work? Ellie asked, her voice tight with frustration. We can't just finite incanatum a whole jungle? Not effectively, I fear, Thorn confirmed. Even a powerful defendo on a large vine might cut it, but the roots would simply regrow with alarming speed, potentially even sprouting new, more aggressive growth. It's like trying to stop a flood by bailing with a teacup. We would exhaust ourselves, and the plants would simply keep coming. The reality of their situation sank in, heavy and cold. They were not fighting a wizard or a dark creature. They were fighting the very ground beneath their feet, the walls around them, the air they breathed. So, what can we do? Leo asked, his voice barely a whisper, but laced with a dawning resolve. The initial terror was still there, but a flicker of something else, a stubborn refusal to surrender, was beginning to assert itself. He thought of the younger students, their innocent faces. He thought of his parents, who had taught him to appreciate every green shoot, every blossom. This twisted mockery of nature had to be stopped. Professor Thorn looked at him, a flicker of something akin to approval in her sharp eyes. We must find a way to sever her connection to the Whomping Willow. To cut the head off the snake, as it were. But to do that, we need to understand her. We need to understand her poisons. And we need to find something that can counteract them. Something that can disrupt her control without simply antagonizing the entire botanical kingdom. She gestured to the various ingredients and scattered notes on the table. My initial analysis suggests her control is deeply intertwined with the plant's own vital processes. She amplifies them, perverts them. A counteragent would need to do the opposite, to calm, to pacify, to reassert the plant's natural state, severing her connection. And for that, she paused, her gaze sweeping over the various potion components. For that, I need specific ingredients. Ingredients I believe are still present on the grounds, if we can reach them. Ellie pushed herself to her feet, wincing slightly. I'll go. I'm a prefect, I know the grounds, and I can handle myself. And put yourself further at risk? Professor Thorn countered, her voice firm. No, the ingredients I need are sensitive. They require a delicate touch and an eye for specific details that a Potions Mistress, not a duelist, possesses. Also, you've already been afflicted once. We cannot risk further exposure. Her gaze, then, landed on Leo. For a Muggle-born bookworm, a quiet observer, Leo had an uncanny memory for detail, for classification. His parents, ironically, had fostered a deep appreciation for the natural world, albeit a non-magical one. He knew plants, he knew classifications, he knew life cycles. It was a skill he rarely used at Hogwarts, but now. Mr. Finch, Professor Thorn began, her voice holding a rare note of contemplation. Your Muggle-born background, your affinity for observation, for detail, it might prove invaluable here. This isn't about casting the most powerful bombarda. This is about understanding. About subtlety. You possess a different kind of strength, Mr. Finch, one that might just be what we need. Leo stared at her, then at Ellie, then at the terrified students. His heart hammered, but it was no longer solely from fear. It was a strange mix of terror and a budding, impossible sense of purpose. Him? A timid third year, sent into the botanical horror outside? He knew plants, yes, but not killer plants. What ingredients? He managed, his voice still shaky but firming. Professor Thorn turned to a heavily bound, ancient book she had retrieved from her personal library. She opened it to a page filled with intricate botanical drawings and faded script. For the primary counteragent, we need the sap of a mature viridian lily, a highly rare and temperamental magical plant known for its restorative properties. It grows in a very specific microclimate, usually near areas of ancient, stable magic. And I suspect, she added, a glint in her eye, that one such lily grows in the most dangerous place of all, the Hogwarts herbology greenhouses. The herbology greenhouses. A place usually overflowing with benign, if occasionally grumpy, magical flora. Now, undoubtedly, a botanical battleground, teeming with Ivy's twisted creations. A chill colder than any dungeon draft snaked down Leo's spine. His stomach lurched. He was terrified. Absolutely, profoundly terrified. But then he thought of the Whomping Willow's agony, the students' screams, the silence that followed. He thought of his home, of Hogwarts, being choked to death. And somewhere, deep within his trembling heart, a tiny, defiant spark ignited. "I'll go," Leo heard himself say, his voice surprisingly steady. "Show me where." Professor Thorne gave him a sharp, appraising look, then a slow, approving nod. "Excellent, Mr. Finch. I believe we have just enough time to brief you. But be warned, the greenhouses are no longer a place of nurturing growth. They are a garden of horrors. And you will be walking straight into the heart of the green. And into something else as well. Ivy's influence isn't merely physical, Leo. Her presence in the castle is a psychic stain, a whisper in the minds of the plants. Out there, Mr. Finch, you will not just be fighting plants, but the insidious thought behind them." The air in the classroom, though free of the choking spores outside, felt heavy with the weight of Professor Thorne's revelation. The fluorescent emergency lights hummed, casting long, stark shadows that made the overturned desks and scattered quills seem like macabre exhibits. Ellie paced, her wand still clutched tight, while Leo, huddled on a broken chair, felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. "Her name is Pamela Isley," Professor Thorne began, her voice crisp and low, cutting through the tense silence. She leaned against a dislodged chalkboard, a rare crack in her usually impeccable posture. Or, as she prefers to be known in her own dimension, Poison Ivy. Leo's brow furrowed. "Another dimension? Like, parallel worlds?" "Precisely, Mr. Finch," Thorne confirmed, a flicker of something almost like awe quickly suppressed in her eyes. From what little Professor Dumbledore's old archives yielded, records that thankfully predate her arrival, she is a radical botanist. Brilliant, undoubtedly. But utterly convinced that humanity is a plague upon the earth, and plants are the true, superior life form. Ellie stopped pacing, her gaze fixed on Thorne. "So she wants to wipe us out? Turn everything into a garden?" "A verdant utopia," in her twisted mind, Thorne corrected, a hint of steel entering her tone. She perceives the wizarding world as particularly egregious, our very magic, our dominion over nature, a violation of the green. She seeks not merely to dominate, but to purify. Leo shuddered, recalling the shrieking students, the crushing vines. This wasn't just a natural disaster, it was a targeted, malevolent intelligence. "And the Whomping Willow? Why that tree?" "A powerful magical nexus," Thorne explained, pushing off the chalkboard. Its root system, ancient and deeply connected to the castle's very foundation, likely resonates with ambient magic unlike any other plant on these grounds. Ivy, sensing its raw power, enthralls it, turning it into her primary conduit. Think of it as a broadcasting tower for her botanical will. Through it, she accelerates growth, twists natural forms, and instills a virulent sentience into everything. And, because the willow is so intertwined with Hogwarts wards, she trailed off, a grim line forming on her lips. "She's corrupting them from the inside out," Ellie finished, her face pale. "That's why our shields are failing. Why spells aren't working properly." "Exactly," Thorne nodded. Standard offensive charms are absorbed, deflected, or simply overridden by her control. It's not just a physical barrier, it's a consciousness. You cannot stupefy a plant that is merely acting as an extension of a greater mind. Leo felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. If conventional magic was ineffective, what hope did they have? He was a Muggle-born third year, barely capable of a decent Wingardium Leviosa, let alone fighting a multi-dimensional ecological terrorist. There is one avenue, Thorn continued, breaking his despairing thoughts. She walked to a corner of the classroom where a small, magically reinforced chest lay. With a tap of her wand, it opened, revealing an array of glistening vials and ancient-looking texts. A specific counteragent. One I've been researching for years, purely hypothetically, for extreme magical plant infestations. It requires a rare sap from the moonpetal orchid. Ellie frowned. The moonpetal orchid? But those only bloom under a specific lunar cycle, and they're incredibly delicate. I thought they only grew in the botanical gardens near the conservatory. Thorn nodded grimly. They do. And given the current situation, I fear they will be either dead or transformed beyond recognition. But there is a secondary location. A small, secluded patch in the less frequented East Wing, near the old herbology greenhouses. It was planted by a particularly eccentric predecessor of mine, who appreciated their unique properties. And it's protected? Leo asked, his voice barely a whisper. Thorn paused, her gaze resting on him. It was. But with the wards failing, nothing is truly safe. However, the moonpetal is a peculiar plant. It possesses a faint, almost imperceptible magical signature, one that often repels aggressive magical flora. It might still be intact, or at least less corrupted than others. The sap, if extracted correctly, can be synthesized into an antidote that temporarily severs Ivy's direct control over specific plant structures. It won't defeat her, but it will buy us time, perhaps even clear a path. I'll go, Ellie volunteered immediately, her hand instinctively going to her wand. Thorn shook her head. No, Eleanor. Your practical combat magic, while invaluable, would be wasted trying to navigate that. The East Wing, particularly the old greenhouse complex, is a labyrinth of forgotten passages. What we need is someone less conspicuous. Someone with keen observation skills who understands the subtleties of plant life, even if only academically. Her eyes met Leo's. Leo's heart hammered against his ribs. He wanted to protest, to curl into a ball and wish for his parents' quiet garden. But then he remembered the fear in the younger student's eyes, the professors fighting with desperation. His own fear was a luxury he couldn't afford. He swallowed hard. I can try, Professor. A flicker of approval, faint but definite, crossed Thorn's face. Good. Take this. She handed him a small, silver phial. It's a basic defoliant, enchanted to be highly selective. Use it only as a last resort. Your primary objective is stealth and observation. The moonpetal is identifiable by its shimmering, almost luminescent petals, even when not in full bloom. You'll need to collect the sap directly from the central stem. Be cautious. Any contact with Ivy's corrupted flora is highly dangerous. As Leo prepared to leave, Thorn added, Eleanor, prepare the classroom. We'll establish this as our temporary base. I need to synthesize what I can from the existing stores and devise a strategy for the next phase. Leo, move quickly. The corridors outside the classroom were a tableau of silent horror. Where once students bustled, now only vines slithered and pulsed. What had been pristine stone walls were now choked with thick, woody tendrils, their surfaces glistening with an unnerving, sickly sheen. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth, ozone, and something else, something bitter and metallic, like stagnant blood. Leo moved like a ghost, his hand instinctively gripping the defoliant phial. Every shadow seemed to writhe, every rustle of leaves sent a jolt of terror through him. He pressed himself against the walls, trying to make himself invisible. His mind, usually a jumble of facts and figures, was now hyper-alert, cataloging every detail, the way a vine snaked around a broken suit of armor, slowly crushing the metal, the unnatural crimson of a moss spreading across a tapestry, the faint, rhythmic thump-thump-thump of something large and unseen moving further down the corridor. He remembered his parents' small garden, the calming ritual of pruning roses, the earthy scent of turned soil. It felt like a lifetime ago. This wasn't nature. This was a mockery of it, a beautiful, deadly nightmare. He navigated the twisting passages towards the East Wing, relying on his mental map of Hogwarts, a map usually filled with pleasant memories of secret passages and quiet reading nooks. Now, each turn was a gamble. He passed a dormitory door, its wood splintered, framed by a thick, thorny bush that seemed to breathe. He could hear faint whimpers from within. He wanted to help, but Thorn's words echoed in his mind. Primary objective is stealth. He felt a pang of guilt, but pushed it down. If he failed, everyone would suffer. He finally reached the old greenhouse complex, a series of glass domes connected by narrow, overgrown corridors. The outer glass was shattered in many places, allowing the outside jungle to encroach freely. Ivy's influence was even more pronounced here. Towering carnivorous plants with gaping maws dripped venomous dew, and vines pulsed with an internal light that made them seem alive in a horrifying way. Leo spotted the entrance to the eccentric professor's private patch, a small, unassuming wooden door now almost entirely swallowed by a wall of dense, thorny brambles. Taking a deep breath, he aimed the defoliant file. A thin, silver mist erupted, and where it touched, the thorns withered and crumbled into dust with a soft hiss. He quickly pushed the door open, slipping inside. The air here was different, less oppressive. The plants, though wild and overgrown, didn't possess the same malevolent aura. They were still beautiful, even in their untamed state, exotic ferns, luminous fungi, flowers with impossible colors. But then he saw it. In a small, relatively untouched clearing under a broken pane of glass that allowed a sliver of weak light to filter through, grew the moon petal orchid. It was small, no taller than his knee, its petals a faint, ethereal silver, shimmering as if reflecting moonlight. It seemed to hum with a quiet energy, a beacon of fragile beauty in the verdant chaos. As he knelt, cautiously approaching the orchid, his hand hovered over its delicate stem. He hesitated, remembering the venomous sap of other plants. But something urged him forward. A faint, almost imperceptible feeling, like a whisper against his mind, drew him in. It wasn't a voice, but a sensation. He reached out, his fingers brushing the cool, smooth stem of the moo petal. And then it happened. It wasn't just touch. It was more. He felt a surge, a resonance that vibrated through his very being. The world around him faded, replaced by a kaleidoscope of sensations. He felt the moon petal's quiet determination, its stubborn defiance against the encroaching corruption, its faint, protective magical hum. But beyond that, deeper, he felt others. A chorus of silent screams. Anguish. Fear. Despair. It was like a torrent of emotions, not from humans, but from the plants themselves. He felt the towering carnivorous plant outside, not as a monster, but as a victim, writhing under an external force, its hunger amplified, its very being distorted. He felt the thorny brambles he had just defoliated, their natural protective instincts twisted into aggressive, hateful rage. He felt the Whomping Willow, a vast, ancient agony, its noble spirit enslaved, its roots throbbing with a dark, foreign rhythm. He was seeing, hearing, feeling the world through their perception, a terrifying symphony of subjugation orchestrated by a singular, cold will. He felt Ivy's presence, too, like a suffocating blanket, a malevolent shadow looming over the collective plant consciousness, pushing, twisting, corrupting. He felt their anguish, their forced compliance, their struggle to retain a shred of their original nature. Leo gasped, pulling his hand away as if burned. He scrambled back, pressing himself against a wall, his heart pounding, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Sweat beaded on his forehead. He wasn't just observing the plants. He was feeling them. He could sense their controlled anguish, their despair, their forced malice. It was as if he had tapped into a collective, enslaved mind. This wasn't normal. This wasn't just book knowledge. This was magic. Something raw, intrinsic, and terrifyingly powerful. An ironic, cruel twist to his parents' love for nature. He, Leo Finch, the timid Muggle-born who preferred spells over shovels, had a connection to the green. And now he understood their pain. He slowly, carefully reached out again, his fingers trembling, and touched the moon petal orchid once more. The connection flooded him, but this time, he fought to control it, to focus. He pushed past the cacophony of fear and pain, trying to find the moon petal's individual essence. He gently pressed a small vial Professor Thorn had given him against its stem, and a single, pearlescent drop of sap welled up, shimmering with an inner light, and fell into the bottle. He had the ingredient. But he had also discovered something far more profound and far more terrifying about himself and the battle they were truly fighting. He wasn't just collecting sap. He was listening to the screams of a world being strangled. He realized, with a chilling certainty, that this connection might be their only chance. He had to tell Professor Thorn. But first, he had to get out of this green hell. And he knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that the plants outside now sensed him too. And their agony had just turned into fury. The air outside the classroom was a sickly sweet miasma, thick with pollen and the decaying scent of crushed foliage. Leo clutched his borrowed wand, his knuckles white, as Professor Thorn pushed open the shattered door with a silent incantation. Ellie, her own wand held aloft, peered around the jam, her expression grim but resolute. "Keep close," Thorn murmured, her voice a low thrum against the pervasive organic hum of the transformed castle. "And listen. Not just with your ears, Mr. Finch." They stepped out into the deserted corridor, no longer recognizable. What had once been polished stone floors and tapestries was now a winding tunnel of living matter. Vines thick as an anaconda snaked through cracks, their smaller tendrils twitching like eager fingers. Moss glowed phosphorescently in the gloom, and strange, fleshy fungi pulsed on the walls. The air was heavy, humid, and alive. Leo swallowed, his heart a frantic drum against his ribs. Every shadow seemed to writhe, every rustle a potential attack. He'd seen enough of the venomous snappers and strangling creepers in the Great Hall to know that beauty here was a deadly deception. "The greenhouse gardens," Professor Thorn stated, pointing with her chin towards what used to be a window, now a solid wall of dense, interwoven greenery. Specifically, the section dedicated to ancient, resilient herbs. Some of them possess inherent properties that repel, or, more accurately, neutralize external magical corruption, even of the botanical kind. We need the root of the Viridian hearthloom. It's a natural ward, a heartwood against blight. "How are we supposed to get there?" Ellie asked, nudging a particularly aggressive-looking cluster of thorny vines with the toe of her boot. It recoiled slightly, then snapped back faster. "These things are everywhere." "Precisely," Thorn said, a glint in her eye. "Which is where Mr. Finch comes in." She turned to Leo, her gaze piercing. "You felt their suffering earlier. Their manipulated anguish. Focus on that. Feel the distortion, the unnatural strain. It's like a discord in a symphony. Where the manipulation is weakest, or where the plant's own ancient will still struggles, there might be a path. And tell us what you feel." Leo nodded, his mind a whirlwind of fear and burgeoning curiosity. He closed his eyes for a moment, pushing past the overwhelming physical sensations of the suffocating air and the rustling leaves. He reached out, not with magic, but with something deeper, more primal. It wasn't a distinct voice, but a chorus of low, guttural whimpers, an undercurrent of pain beneath the aggressive, triumphant roar of Ivy's will. He felt the vines twisting around the stone columns, their normal growth patterns contorted, forced. He felt the moss greedily consuming the dying light, its natural function amplified to a destructive degree. But beneath it all, a faint, stubborn echo of what they once were. They hurt," Leo whispered, opening his eyes. "It's like they're being stretched too thin, pulled in directions they don't want to go. And some parts, they're angrier than others. Like they've been beaten into submission." "Excellent," Thorn breathed, a flicker of approval in her stern features. "Lead on, Mr. Finch. Where does the discord lessen?" Leo took a hesitant step, then another. He focused on the raw, almost physical presence of the plants around them. He concentrated on filtering out Ivy's booming, dominant control, searching for the softer, more desperate whispers beneath. He pointed to a small gap between two particularly thick, fleshy tendrils. "There. It's quieter there." Less forced. Ellie, still wary, sent a quick reducto at a smaller vine that lunged for them. It exploded in a shower of sticky sap. Quieter or not, they're still hostile, Leo. Don't get complacent. Of course not, Leo mumbled, though he felt a faint flush of pride at Thorn's nod. He found himself moving with a strange new instinct, his gaze drawn to the subtle shifts in leaf texture, the slight slackening of a tendril. He could feel the pathways of energy, like veins under skin, and could sense where they were taut with Ivy's control, and where they were slightly looser. They navigated through the winding, overgrown corridors. One moment, they were pressing past a wall of razor-sharp leaves that retracted slightly as Leo approached. The next they were tiptoeing across a floor covered in pulsing, bioluminescent mushrooms that seemed to hum with a malevolent glee. Their journey was punctuated by close calls. A sudden lurch of the floor turned out to be a massive root system shifting beneath them, forcing Ellie to blast a path through a collapsing archway. A cluster of bulbous, sentient pitcher plants, their mouths wide and dripping with digestive enzymes, had to be skirted by inches, Leo sensing their hunger almost as keenly as his own fear. He felt the temptation to step closer, to understand, but the primal urge for self-preservation kept him back. Hold! Professor Thorne suddenly commanded, stopping short. They were at the entrance to what had once been the main arboretum, now a colossal, domed cavern of intertwined branches and glowing flora. In the center, a monumental structure of woody growth pulsed with a faint, sickly green light. From it, dozens of slender, thorny tendrils lashed out, constantly sweeping the area. The Belladonna Sentinel, Thorne explained, her voice hushed. An ancient protective construct, awakened and co-opted by Ivy. It senses movement, heat, and magic. Any attempt to pass will result in unpleasantness. Leo's breath hitched. He could feel it. A vast, intricate network of awareness emanating from the Sentinel, a predatory intelligence that wasn't Ivy's, but was entirely loyal to her. It was a plant, yes, but it felt less like manipulated growth and more like a magically animated creature, honed for defense. He closed his eyes again, reaching deeper. He felt the Sentinel's internal mechanisms, the flow of sap, the flexing of its woody muscles. He felt its raw, unthinking obedience to Ivy's command. But he also felt something else. A flicker of its original purpose. To protect, not to destroy indiscriminately. Ivy had twisted it, but hadn't entirely overwritten its core directive. It's waiting, Leo said, his voice strained. It feels like it's searching. It's trying to find anything out of place. We're out of place. Indeed, Thorne responded. Any suggestions, Mr. Finch? Conventional magic would merely provoke it further, as it would register as a threat. Leo stared at the Sentinel, then at the entrance to the greenhouse gardens beyond it, where the Viridian Hearthbloom presumably lay. He could feel the thrum of its powerful roots under the earth, a deep, resonant hum, almost like a heartbeat. It was so close. An idea, reckless and terrifying, sparked in his mind. He remembered Professor Sprout teaching them about the sentience of some plants, their slow awareness. He remembered the feeling of manipulated anguish. It's not just looking for us, Leo said slowly. It's looking for strangeness. If we could, make ourselves seem less strange. Less disruptive to the plant network. Less like a foreign body. Ellie frowned. How do you propose we do that? Put leaves on our heads? No, Leo mumbled, taking a step forward, towards the edge of the Sentinel's sweeping tendrils. He raised his hand, not with his wand, but with his bare palm outstretched. I think. I can try to make it think we're part of it. A natural part of the growth. Leo, that's insane. Ellie hissed, grabbing his arm. It'll crush you. Wait, Eleanor, Thorne interjected, her gaze fixed on Leo, a flicker of understanding in her eyes. What do you intend, Mr. Finch? I can feel its commands from Ivy, Leo explained, his gaze unwavering from the Sentinel's swaying form. They're like instructions, etched onto its consciousness. But I also feel its own basic awareness. If I can mimic the pulse of the network, if I can project acceptance, not hostility, maybe it won't see us as a threat. He took a deep breath, focusing all his burgeoning empathy, his raw, unrefined connection. He tried to feel the rhythm of the plants around him, the slow, deliberate pulse of growth, the exchange of nutrients, the silent communication within the network. He tried to merge his own awareness with that of the surrounding flora to become a quiet, unthreatening presence. He extended his hand further, picturing a gentle green energy flowing from him, not magical in the conventional sense, but something fundamental, harmonious. He focused on the pain of the sentinel, the forced obedience, and projected a sense of calm, of belonging. As he did, the air around them seemed to shimmer. The closest tendril of the belladonna sentinel, which had been whipping fiercely, slowed. It dipped, almost hesitantly, then brushed against Leo's outstretched fingers. A jolt, like static electricity, ran through Leo. He felt the sheer power of the sentinel, its ancient, lumbering strength. But he also felt a momentary confusion, a ripple in its programmed aggression. It paused, its vast, woody body still. The other tendrils, for a precious few seconds, ceased their sweeping. "Now!" Thorn hissed, grabbing Ellie's arm and practically dragging her forward. "Don't break concentration, Mr. Finch. Keep it up." Leo, heart pounding, kept his hand outstretched, his mind a conduit, projecting peace and belonging into the tumultuous, ivified network. They crept past the belladonna sentinel, its immense form towering over them, its single tendril still resting against Leo's fingertips. It was the most terrifying, exhilarating moment of his life. They reached the other side, stepping into the dim, humid warmth of the ancient herb garden. The moment they cleared the sentinel's range, Leo felt its vast awareness snap back to its programmed vigilance, the tendrils resuming their violent sweeps. He yanked his hand back, gasping, sweat trickling down his face. "Incredible, Mr. Finch," Thorn said, a rare, genuine note of awe in her voice. Even Ellie looked at him with wide, impressed eyes. I just tried to feel what it felt," Leo stammered, wiping his brow. "And then, show it we weren't hostile." The ancient herb garden was different from the rest of Hogwarts. Here, the plants seemed to resist Ivy's control more fiercely. Some were still twisted, but many held their original forms, battling back the invasive tendrils with their own inherent magic. They pulsed with a faint, defiant light. They moved deeper, Leo now actively using his empathy to locate the Viridian Hearthbloom. He felt for a signature of deep, settled magic, a core of resistance, like a tiny beacon in the storm. "There," he whispered, pointing to a gnarled, moss-covered lump of roots barely visible beneath a thicket of stubborn, thorny bushes. A faint, emerald glow emanated from the earth beneath it. "That's it. I can feel an old, strong pulse, like a heart beating." Thorn knelt, pulling out a small silver trowel and a silk-lined pouch. "Careful, Mr. Finch. The hearthloom is sensitive. It must be harvested with respect, not force." Leo watched as Thorn carefully began to dig, her movements precise and reverent. Ellie stood guard, her wand ready. The air around them grew heavy with a new scent, a deep, earthy aroma mixed with something subtly metallic, like ozone before a storm. As Thorn finally unearthed the root, it pulsed with an intense, vibrant emerald light, revealing a thick, gnarled mass that looked like petrified wood, but hummed with life. It was beautiful, but also strangely unnerving, like a piece of raw magic. Suddenly, a shudder ran through the entire garden. The ambient light flared, then dimmed, and a deep, resonating hum vibrated through the ground, rising in intensity. "She knows," Ellie breathed, her eyes wide. "Ivy knows we've taken it." From the deepest recesses of the arboretum, a chorus of guttural, plant-based roars erupted. Vines lashed out, not randomly, but with renewed fury, targeting their immediate location. The ancient belladonna sentinel, though far behind them, seemed to pulse with a malevolent red light, its consciousness flaring with Ivy's outrage. "We have the hearthbloom," Thorn said, quickly placing the pulsing root into the silk pouch, which immediately contained its light. "But now, she is truly angered. She's coming for us." Before Leo could fully process the professor's words, a monstrous, thorny vine, thicker than the Hogwarts Express, burst through the canopy above them, raining down debris and showering them in a corrosive, glowing sap. Its tip, a gaping maw of fangs and stinging tendrils, lunged directly for them, moving with impossible speed and radiating a furious, almost intelligent malice. Ivy wasn't just sending her minions anymore. She was sending a direct message, and it was clear, no one escapes her garden. The air grew heavy with the scent of ozone and decaying leaves as Leo, Ellie, and Professor Thorn pushed through a final thicket of grasping vines. Ahead, through a veil of weeping fig roots thicker than pythons, the Whomping Willow pulsed with malevolent energy. It was no longer the imposing but familiar tree of their childhood, but a monstrous, verdant titan. Its branches, once woody and brown, were now covered in phosphorescent green moss and razor-sharp thorns, twitching with predatory awareness. Venomous orchids the size of dinner plates hung from its limbs, dripping viscous, purple liquid onto the churned earth below. At its very heart, nestled within a newly formed cavity that pulsed like a necrotic wound, stood Pamela Isley. Her red hair cascaded over a dress woven from what looked like living emerald leaves, shimmering with otherworldly light. Tendrils of moss and ivy snaked up her arms, connecting her physically to the tree, making her seem less human and more a part of the monstrous plant itself. Her eyes, luminous and cold, surveyed the trio with a disdain that chilled Leo to the bone. Finally, Ivy's voice echoed, soft yet resonating with the willow's deep thrum. It was a voice that promised both seductive beauty and crushing oblivion. The little pests arrive. So, you think you can sever my communion with this magnificent titan? Foolish children. And you, Professor, has decades of clinging to human artifice truly blinded you to the raw, untamed power of the green? Professor Thorn stepped forward, her wand held firm. Pamela Isley, you have desecrated sacred ground, poisoned innocent minds, and threatened the balance of an entire world. Your misguided purification is nothing but rampant destruction. Ivy laughed, a sound like dry leaves rustling in a gale. Balance? You call this balance? Your world is a cancerous blight, tearing apart the very fabric of life with your wasteful desires, your pointless wars, your magic that bends nature to your will instead of bowing before it. I am merely accelerating the inevitable cleansing. This tree, it sings to me. It yearns to be free of your suppressive wards, to spread its glorious truth across the globe. It's not singing willingly, Leo interjected, his voice trembling despite his resolve. He could feel it, the immense, suffocating grief radiating from the willow, the frantic struggle beneath Ivy's iron grip. You're forcing it. You're twisting its essence, corrupting its power. Ivy's gaze snapped to Leo, sharp and dissecting. The little Finch. You feel it, don't you? A burgeoning connection, like a seed struggling to sprout in barren earth. But it's too late. You are merely a whisper against my symphony. This planet will be reborn, and you will become fertilizer for the new age. With a flick of her wrist, a torrent of thorny vines erupted from the willow's trunk, lashing out like whips. Protego! Ellie shouted, throwing up a shimmering shield that absorbed the initial impact, but cracked under the relentless assault. Leo, now! Professor Thorn yelled, unleashing a volley of blinding silver sparks from her wand, aiming to distract Ivy. The sparks, however, were absorbed by the willow's dense foliage, leaving barely a singe. Ivy merely extended her hand, and the very air around Thorn became heavy, thick with spores that made the professor cough violently, her eyes watering. This was it. Leo clenched his fists, his heart hammering against his ribs. Fear was a cold knot in his stomach, but beneath it, a furious defiance burned. He remembered the plants in the greenhouses, their forced anguish, their silent cries. This was magnified 1,000-fold in the Whomping Willow. He wasn't just fighting for Hogwarts, he was fighting for the very soul of the plants themselves. Taking a deep breath, Leo extended his hands towards the pulsating heart of the Whomping Willow where Ivy stood, a conduit of corruption. He closed his eyes, shutting out the chaos, the sounds of Ellie's struggling shield, Thorn's choking coughs. He reached out with his unique affinity, not just sensing, but actively feeling the willow. It was an overwhelming torrent of agony. He felt the ancient roots, usually content and deeply embedded, now screaming as alien consciousness ripped through them. He felt the sap, usually a gentle current of life, now boiling with forced growth hormones, accelerating its decay. He felt the mighty branches, once proud and free, now enslaved, used as weapons against their will. It was like feeling every nerve ending in his own body simultaneously experiencing excruciating pain, but on a scale so vast it threatened to shatter his mind. He almost recoiled, almost screamed. But then he remembered Professor Thorn's words, "You are a part of the green, Leo. You must remind it of its true nature." He pushed past the pain, focusing on the whispers of the willow's true self, the centuries of protecting Hogwarts, the gentle sway in the breeze, the quiet nourishment from the earth. He found tiny pockets of resistance, faint flickers of the willow's original consciousness struggling against Ivy's overwhelming will. They were like embers in a hurricane. "Ivy," he cried, his voice raw, pouring all his energy into his connection. "You are not nurturing. You are destroying. You are a parasite, not a protector." Ivy faltered, her luminous eyes widening slightly. She felt it, a faint tremor in her absolute control, a dissonance in the willow's song. It was irritating, like a fly buzzing, but growing louder. Leo focused harder. He didn't try to fight Ivy's power directly with magic. Instead, he channeled the plant's true essence, their intrinsic desire for balance, for natural growth, for autonomy. He projected empathy, not just to the willow, but through it, back at Ivy. He made her feel the forced anguish she was inflicting, the unnatural violation of the willow's being. He made her feel the scream of every twisted vine, every venomous bloom, every choking root that had been enslaved. A low growl ripped from Ivy's throat. Her connection to the willow, which had been seamless, began to fray at the edges. She staggered, clutching her head, her face contorting in a mask of unexpected agony. The emerald leaves of her dress seemed to writhe, as if rebelling. "What are you doing?" she shrieked, her voice losing its composed resonance, laced now with genuine pain. "Stop it. You are infecting it. Undoing my work." Leo kept pushing, pouring every ounce of his burgeoning affinity into the attack. He was no longer just sensing. He was actively broadcasting the willow's defiant spirit. He felt its ancient magic, long suppressed, begin to stir, responding to his call. It wasn't his magic overpowering Ivy, it was the willow's magic, awakened and turned against its enslaver. The colossal tree began to tremble, a deep, resonant shudder that vibrated through the ground. The phosphorescent moss on its branches dimmed, then flickered erratically. The venomous orchids shriveled, their purple liquid retracting into their petals like startled snails. Ivy screamed, a sound of pure, unadulterated anguish. Her connection to the willow snapped, not with a bang, but with a tearing, rending sensation that echoed through Leo's very soul. The emerald leaves of her dress withered and crumbled to dust. The tendrils of moss and ivy that connected her to the tree violently recoiled, tearing at her skin, leaving bleeding welts. Released from her thrall, the Whomping Willow let out a groan that was less aggressive and more a sound of profound exhaustion. Its branches, moments ago lashing out, sagged, slowly retracting their thorns. The unnatural, accelerated growth began to reverse, the sickly green fading to a more natural, if still bruised, brown. As Ivy stumbled back, clutching her head, Professor Thorn seized the opportunity. "Incarcerus," she barked, a thick rope spell coiling around Ivy's flailing limbs, binding her securely. Ivy thrashed, her eyes blazing with impotent rage, but the spell held. The sudden absence of Ivy's oppressive botanical will was like a rush of fresh air. The heavy, spore-laden atmosphere around Professor Thorn dissipated, allowing her to gasp for clean breath. Ellie's Protego shield, though battered, held, and she lowered it, her eyes wide with awe as she stared at Leo. Leo, however, was on his knees, panting, completely drained. He felt spent, as if he had run a marathon through his own consciousness. But through the exhaustion, there was an exhilarating clarity. He had done it. He had faced down an entity of immense power, not with a spell he'd learned from a textbook, but with something uniquely his own. He looked around. The dangerous, mutated jungle that had consumed Hogwarts was receding. The crushing vines uncoiled, the venomous flowers wilted, their vibrant colors softening to a gentler palette. The castle walls, though still scarred, were no longer choked by invasive growth. The ancient wards, no longer overridden, pulsed faintly, slowly beginning their centuries-old work of restoration. Ellie rushed to Leo, helping him to his feet. "Leo, you did it. You actually did it." Her face, streaked with dirt and exhaustion, radiated relief and pride. Professor Thorne approached, studying Leo with a new, profound respect. "Remarkable, Mr. Finch. Truly remarkable. Your empathy, your unique connection, it allowed you to resonate with the green in a way I've never witnessed. You didn't fight her power, you disrupted her control by reminding the plants of their true nature. You freed them." Leo looked at his hands, then at the slowly regenerating Whomping Willow, which now seemed to gaze at him with a silent, ancient wisdom. He could still feel a faint echo of its gratitude, a quiet hum of appreciation. He wasn't just a Muggle-born bookworm anymore. He was Leo Finch, a wizard with a connection to magic unlike any other, a protector of the natural world, a defender of Hogwarts. He met Professor Thorne's gaze, a quiet determination hardening his features. "What about her?" he asked, indicating the bound ivy, who now lay slumped against the willow's trunk, weakened but still defiant. Professor Thorne regarded Ivy with a stern expression. "She will be contained. We will find a way to return her to her own dimension, or at the very least, ensure she can never again unleash such devastation here. This power, your power, Leo, it has changed everything." She paused, her gaze sweeping over the slowly mending grounds of Hogwarts. "The thorned grounds are receding, but the scars will remain. And so will the knowledge that magic, in all its forms, is capable of both great destruction and profound healing. But one question remains, Mr. Finch." She turned back to Leo, a glint in her eyes. "What exactly is your connection to the green? We have only seen its nascent awakening. The depths of your magical potential. I suspect we have only scratched the surface." Leo looked out over the familiar, yet subtly altered, landscape of Hogwarts. The sun, finally breaking through the heavy canopy of vines that had shrouded the sky, cast long shadows across the grounds. He had saved Hogwarts, but he knew this was just the beginning of his journey. The green had called to him, and he had answered. Now he had to learn what it truly meant to be Leo Finch, the boy who spoke for the trees, and what further trials awaited him in a world forever changed by the touch of a radical botanist from another dimension. Was Ivy truly defeated, or merely delayed? And what new responsibilities came with his newfound power? The quiet whisper of the plants, now free, seemed to hold the answers, beckoning him deeper into the mysteries of the green.